Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have live from Cincinnati. I feel like you should be on stage. We have Lee, and he is from the RSW/US in Cincinnati. How do I say it properly? Welcome to the show, Lee.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. RSW.
RSW.
Good. The company was started actually in the UK in '92. And has gone through some morphing of names. So it was actually Reardon Smith Whitaker, which sounded like a law firm. But
right.
So now it's slowly but surely we're over here in the States. And so RSW.
So Mark Snyder started the company in the UK. Is he actually English and moved it over? Is that right? How did the history evolve?
It should be more clear. So actually is Adam Whitaker and his wife, which is where the Reardon Smith Whitaker came from, their last names. They started in, I believe it was '92 in the UK. And then, so it'd be 15 years ago now. Our president, as you mentioned, Mark, actually was a client first, is how it happened.
Never.
So he was then at a research firm here in Cincinnati. And so he had his folks in the UK that were reaching out on his behalf, but liked what was happening, liked the model, partnered up with Adam at that point. And then, I guess we bought ourselves out. Maybe it's been 7 years now, but we're still on good terms with Adam, great guy. And he actually changed their name to Manifest. And so they're still kicking and doing well. And, we'll trade leads across. We basically have US and Canada.
Super. And how big is the company and what type of clients do you look after?
Yeah. So there's 32 of us now.
Oh, cool.
And so it's outsourced new business development solely for, we always start by saying agencies, but really that's kind of an umbrella term because that can include PR, it can include even tech. I mean, I know you certainly know, and people listening, what's called an agency today is certainly different than it even was 10 years ago. But from full service agencies all the way to very niche, whether it's digital or maybe a vertical, that's where we play.
Awesome. What type of work do you do, the outreach? To give us a kind of typical size of company that you work with, like what's your dream kind of work that you love to do?
Sure. Yeah, I think for us, the sweet spot is the small to mid-size agency. We certainly have and do work with larger firms. And by that, and it's always interesting, a definition of a small agency, because I'll be on the phone with an agency. I mean, part of my job, I'm the VP of sales, is I started out as a new business director where I had my own agency clients. And now my job predominantly is to bring on agency clients and then also work a lot with, doing a lot of our content and social media. But point was talking to some firms and they're like, oh, we're kind of small. And I'll say, oh, but like staff size. And they'll be like, oh, there's about 120 of us. I'm like, that's not that small. Like,
that's pretty big in the
us,
agency
from
world.
A staff yeah, right. I mean, from a staff perspective, it's probably from 10 to 70, for example, is the good brunt, of our clients. And that's typically because they need us, right? I mean, it's the bigger they get, there's typically our teams in place. Although interestingly, even then we've worked with very large firms where, whether it's a matter of overhead or just because our folks, our new business directors have 4 clients total typically that they work with, and they're non-conflicting.
Yeah.
Our main thing is we've got to have folks with 15 to 20 years of experience in sales and marketing typically, because we're reaching out to decision makers. So if we're talking to a VP of marketing, for example, or a CMO, you've got to have someone who can speak their language, because if it's someone just reading from a script or you can tell they're pretty green, you're never going to break through to someone at that level. So I think for us, that's what we're always trying to do, is get in the door with a good qualified meeting. And then the best next step is always to ask, how can we get you closer to close? How can we get you closer to closing the business? So our clients are literally closing at the end. We're not doing that for them, but we're trying to do everything we can to get them to that point.
Right.
And so
is that everything from marketing, turning marketing collateral into sales collateral? So they've got a bank of information. They're not digging around from it, to scripts, to calls. Video selling is something you help them obviously get comfortable with video and prospecting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially now, it's for us. We provide a new business director. We have a list building team, so we are building all the lists for prospecting for clients, and then we have a member of our marketing communications team. So our clients, we do have some designers, but we don't play designer or creative director, especially because, our clients being agencies, almost all of them, unless they're a different type of firm, they don't have that in-house. There's some things that certainly they're going to create, but we're there to do some of that too, in terms of like case studies. And you mentioned some of them. We review proposals, for clients if they need it. So it's pretty much kind of trying to, for a good portion of our clients, we are the new business team, or maybe they have a new business director already in place and we become part of that team. So it's
nice.
I wouldn't say it's even, but almost, as far as the the breakout.
Yeah, you slot in. And sort of if we go from an evergreen, and we'll kind of cover what's happening today, but what are the typical challenges that you see when it comes to business development in the agency world? What are the typical things that they would ring you for, or they are struggling with?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting for the agency principals, for the partners, the owner or the owners. If a lot of times what's happened is they've tried to do it themselves, and a lot of them will tell us, we didn't start this firm to do this, or we're not good at it. I mean, a lot of them will just say right out, if you get us in the room, we'll do quite well. But taking all those steps, right, to get to that point, breaking through at the top of the funnel and getting first meetings, and then carrying it through and following up and making sure they don't go dark. A lot of them will just say, that's why we're hiring you. But others have maybe made an internal hire with a new business director, and it unfortunately hasn't gone well. And that is self-serving on my part to say that, but it is about here and I would just don't know what it's like there, if there's differences, but it's about 18 months is how long a new business director lasts at an agency. And now there's reasons for that, obviously. Well, of course there are, but a lot of times they don't get the support they need, or they haven't been trained. But just as many other times, maybe they should have never been hired because they kind of brought their Rolodex, which I'm dating myself here, but right?
I know what that is. We'll put a picture in the show notes for the kids.
Well, yeah, right. Or at least they brought their network in, right? And when that network runs out, a lot of the times they're kind of done. And so, and that's not to knock. I mean, there's some great new business directors out there, of course, but those are the general reasons why. And then it's always a time thing. They just, clients have to come first. New business tends to come last, almost always. And we get it. I mean, God bless them. They're wearing so many hats. It's very hard. So that's the reason why we exist, really, I think.
Right. Yeah, no, it's typical in every world. I remember seeing that when I was in the tech world, as in IT, like hardware tech, years and years ago. You talk to companies, and there was always this thing of hiring a sales gun. And it was like, okay, let's analyze the gun, let's look at the gun. Is the gun working for a particular type of company? Does he have a network and a Rolodex? Does, the gun, unless he's got a process, or her, and coming in going, I can replicate this, but you can't transfer it. And it was a lot less in the IT world. I'll tell you, it was 6 months. They were
Is that right?
Yeah, because they were believing in something. The person didn't have a process. They had this illusion. There was a lot of, I remember at the time we used to go to rugby in corporate boxes, nice. Those times, there was a lot of that going on. Oh, Jack's a good lad and he knows everyone. But Jack wasn't transferable. He was good at that particular job in that particular company with that particular network. He had a lot of particulars, couldn't transfer it.
Got it.
So yeah, I can imagine that's happening. So it's about the process. It's about the numbers and doing the things. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, I love it. So obviously we're living in a new world. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced we're in the middle of April, not at the end of April. See that? March was like the longest month in the world.
I know.
It was just and now it's the end of April. It's going to be May on Friday.
I know.
We're in the middle of a lockdown. You guys are coming out of it. What are some of the challenges that agencies have called you with in the last few weeks, and how have you been helping people?
Sure. Well, I think what's been interesting, and so I was on another podcast just 3 weeks ago, and the point then stands now in the sense of we're going to be, and I'm going to be, you and I, even right now, are talking about kind of some different things because it changes every week. Having said that, you're right. It seems like it's going on. I mean, I think at one point, and everyone's had a different name for it, but like bizarro dog years, where it does feel like March was so long. And you're right. I mean, here we are at the end of
What
end of
happened to
April.
April?
Yeah, and so I think one big you have challenges that are just more tactical and where it's not good, right? In the sense of you have clients and we have prospects who are coming to us, and like everybody, I mean, budgets have been frozen. We had a project now that's on halt, or God forbid, clients are just leaving. I think thankfully, when we have things, I know we had talked about it a little bit before we started, with the Paycheck Protection Program and things like that. I know I've talked to a lot of agency owners that thankfully have gotten that kind of help, and I'm hoping that keeps going for them. So you just have that where it's now that has happened to them, and a good chunk of them didn't have a great new business structure in place anyway. So what we've tried to do is be flexible where we can, to bring on new clients. But I think then you look at it another way in the sense of what I'd mentioned earlier, and that is with the messaging and how you're reaching out. That changes almost every week because, one of the things that it's come out a lot now, and we do a video series, and that to make this about me, but just the point is, had agency owners and talking now about the fact that, and even, I did 5 weeks ago, we were using uncertain times and unprecedented and unparalleled and words like that. And I think now fast forward that prospects, our prospects, typically a marketer, for example, they've heard all of it. And it's starting to everyone's starting to look the same. And it's almost to the point where while it is well-intended, it's starting to get a little bit lazy. And then kind of the same on the marketing side, where every commercial that you see now is a piano and we're all in this together. And again, well-intended. But I think now the big challenge is, okay, we've acknowledged this is terrible. And now business has to move forward in some fashion. So the messaging for new business and with our salespeople and with myself when I'm reaching out to agencies is more about, look, we're not out of it yet, but we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. What kind of planning can we help you with? What does it look like months from now? And there's so much uncertainty.
Yep.
Can't help but use that word. But
no,
so
there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot.
It's very hard to plan, right? But I think
very
at the end of the day,
yeah, some
things you have to do. And new business is got to be paramount. And again, whether it was a firm like ours or internally, whatever it is, and thankfully, I think a lot of agencies between that and so many of them, and it's been really heartening to see, have finally started to create content, for themselves and getting that to prospects. So many agency owners had never done video before, for example, and some of it's a little clunky, but I'm like, you know what, you're going to get better, and that's great. Now keep it up after this, because it's tough to do. But so that's that's several things that we and I have seen as of late.
With that PPP loan, what are the limitations on that? Say I'm a company in America, do I have to pay it back?
So quite frankly, it's a bit murky. We're actually meeting,
because they've given how many? 5 trillion? 13
is that what we're up to now?
I don't even know what 14 billion, gazillion, squillion, bajillions.
They're going to have to make up. Yeah, it's going to be like a cartoon. Yeah, they're going to make up names for how much it is.
Yeah.
But honestly, a lot of money. It's kind of tough to say because what it is that you have that 6-week period where if you can show in terms of payroll, utilities, that it went towards that, the idea is that it is completely forgivable. But if you don't reach certain thresholds, it's like it'll be a 1% interest rate over, I believe it's 2 years, not to get too technical here, but that you would have to pay whatever back that didn't apply or that you may not have used correctly. And you have to, and all that starts on the day you get the loan. So some folks are kind of potentially getting hosed, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's great that it's happening, but there's a lot of confusion around it, is my point, as maybe you can tell from. So it's great. I mean, thank God, and so glad. But and to be fair, they had to roll all that out over a very short period of time.
I know, on some very old infrastructure, which we've uncovered.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that weren't working, and there wasn't a lot of up-to-date technology. There wasn't any apps that could fast forward with a phone number money to your account that we have over here in Europe, those fancy things.
Yeah, I mean, Europe has had, and Adam, who I mentioned, we had talked to him several weeks ago, and, everyone's, of course, nervous, but he was certainly less so, just in the sense of the system that you all have in place. Kuda, I mean, it's fantastic. And we talked about it. Yes, obviously, as a country, we're bigger, so there's going to be challenges, but yeah, it seems like a lot of the agencies have gotten it at least, but
Good. Okay. So
but
that's
we'll
starting.
see.
So they just have to make sure that whatever they're doing, they're allocating, look, I'm spending this money. Here's the wages bill for the month of April, right? Boom, boom. You know, and if they're drawing a direct line between the activities that are going on and keeping clean records on it, then it can keep things moving.
It's essentially, I generalized it quite a bit, but I mean, apparently it's like an 18 or a 30-page document that
Wow.
these owners are getting, and I'm sure, God knows, ideally you have
where did they download that?
Well, yeah, well, that was part of it too, is where, in different banks set things off at different times.
Yeah.
So some were getting it, and then we have here where you had the giant companies getting it.
Yeah, I heard about that. That was interesting. Didn't Harvard apply for it or something? There was all sorts of fun. I'm showing how much news I'm watching right now by sharing all of this. But I heard about big companies going for it as well. It's like, really?
Yeah, I think I just saw this morning the Lakers, the professional basketball team in LA, they just gave back money, I believe. So at least those companies are, and they're doing it for the sake of PR, but they should, and that's good.
Yeah, but there was a lot of, I think if you're in business and something's offered, you're going to go and do whatever you can. You might in hindsight go, oh, hang on, I shouldn't have done that. But at the time, nobody knew how long this was going to go. If the Lakers knew 6 weeks you're going to be starting to move, there'll be some movement in the country, they would have gone, okay. But at the time, it was like, oh, we're going to be shut down for years. There was
right.
So with your company, do you do mainly business in America, and is it mainly in the state that you're in, or are you do you work with companies outside of the country or inside the country?
Yeah. So predominantly, we're only US and Canada in terms of where our clients reside.
Got it. Yeah.
We work across our entire country, not, a small percentage in Canada. Now, having said that, we do have some, like, for lack of a better word, I guess, outliers where, for example, recently a client came on, they're based out of Mexico City, but they have a presence actually in Chicago. They do a lot of work with some really, really big brands. And so in those situations, it makes sense for us. But it is predominant. And so occasionally we will prospect, like, maybe into Europe a bit. But that's extremely rare. It's usually US and Canada.
Yeah. So let's start there. You've noticed a difference then in how Canada has communicated to the business versus probably having a different conversation, and every state with every agency has a different message, right?
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Yeah. And it's interesting though. I haven't talked to as many, trying to think, I think just in the last 3 weeks, just one Canadian agency. They were fairly small, but it's a lot of similarities as well. But oddly, I haven't talked to as many as I typically do. I'm not, when I reach out for new clients and our president Mark, we're not targeting specific areas per se.
Yeah.
So that it's not that that's necessarily odd, but yeah, it would be interesting to see more where they're faring given some of the different realities.
And what are the differences you've noticed between your own state and then the states that you're talking to? Like, how different are the conversations? So an agency in another part of the country versus an agency in your state. What are the kind of similarities, and what are the differences of what their challenges are at the moment?
It's fairly similar. It's actually a really interesting question, because it's fairly similar from state to state. And over about last month, I won't say I've touched every single state and agency.
Of course, yeah.
Right. But we have clients in almost, majority of states, and so it's been interesting. So for example, our clients in New York, we have several of those in the city and in Manhattan specifically. As you might imagine, different than the client that we have in South Dakota. So in those scenarios where you have New York, which is the epicenter, the epicenter, speaking correctly, as you might imagine, much more nervous about the state of the business versus the South Dakota. And I've talked to some prospects too there, interestingly, that while they're nervous, sure, a lot of them, depending on what verticals they're going after, are doing a bit better. And so that's interesting too, where unfortunately of course, tourism,
Of
travel,
course. Yeah.
restaurants, events.
Hmm.
Some of those they all got hit hard. Thankfully, we're seeing some of them starting to plan, but even so, but then you have other agencies who, and like what I'm thinking of the one in kind of middle of the country with agriculture or what have you, a lot of them are doing extremely well. And some of these owners are almost embarrassed to share that, which I completely understand because they're
I
feeling
know.
for everyone. At the same token, for their employees, that's fantastic. And this has been particularly odd, right? Because of the nature of it, where you have some firms doing quite well, and others who've just been hit so hard. So I think those are probably the main differences. And you even had some parts of our country, right, where there wasn't a much of a lockdown, which seems very odd. And so for them, they've still been affected, right? Because the companies they work with are not necessarily local. Some might be. So that's what's made it so hard for so many firms, to figure it all out. But I think for the most part, though, it's been the same challenges. I mean, it's been the
Got it. Yeah.
pausing, or and I think in the first couple of weeks there was that. I don't think it's fair to call it an overreaction, but there was that shock. There was that week 2. Oh God, now we're putting things on pause where budgets are slashed. But then over the ensuing weeks, it started to at least calm down a bit, right? Where
Hmm.
people were getting a little more, okay, we're in this now.
Hmm.
Now let's look at how we can get out of it.
Yeah, I speak to agencies obviously all the time, and that is some of them, especially in the healthcare industry, have been
Yeah.
doing really well. And I was on a call the other day, and they were just expressing how they're relieved and they're happy, but they're
Yeah.
also feeling a little bit guilty because they know of agencies that are not doing well, and they're
Sure.
also going, yeah, but we don't want to talk about it either. And I was like, well, you can't talk about it. It's like there is a health crisis. People are dying.
Oh, absolutely.
You've fortunately had an opportunity where your business is not, but it's okay not to talk about it. As marketing agencies, I think it's a struggle for them because they want to share the good news. They want to let their clients know. I was going to just do it all individually, do it behind the scenes. And when you come out of this, share what worked and what didn't to help others. But at the moment, there isn't a need to share the opportunities. Although it would be nice if we could hear that there's good news going on. There's a way of communicating because it's all absolutely horrible news at the moment. There's very rarely do you hear a good news story.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm gonna
Actually, that's a good idea for you guys. Would you go and get some good news?
Yeah, well,
There's an
I was going to
idea
say
for
I'm
you,
going
Lee,
to
right
steal. I'm
now.
going to steal some of that from you and credit you. No, I really do think that's a really valid point. Is that, and I'd use the word embarrassed. I think guilty is actually the better word. And
It
I
is
talked to,
guilt. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
and I totally understand that. But to your point, I agree with you. I think I'm not going to get into a statement on the media, but it, what leads bleeds, or what bleeds leads, whatever the,
Yeah.
the phrase
Yeah. That's it.
I just
Yeah.
butchered, but it is getting old. I mean, I've gotten to the point where and it's funny, my wife's like, you stop looking at the news for a little bit. And I think from a
You
health
have an
point,
adult in the house to stop you. I do not.
I know. Well, and right.
I have no adult here to tell me to switch off the television.
No.
You're a lucky man. But you're right. Yeah, we're not about to do an exam on the topic of the pandemic, are we? I'm definitely
No.
not doing a degree on it. I don't know why I'm studying it so much.
Right. No, but I think it's a great point about
Yeah.
the good news. We don't want to be naive about it, and we don't want to be a Pollyanna, but at the same time, and you hit it right. I think hit the nail on the head, right? It's all in how you're phrasing it. It's all in how you're doing it. But I think ultimately, and I've seen some agencies starting to do this. I know a client we just got on board, part of, I think over the last 3 weeks, they've done this COVID campaign for one of their clients. And I think if you can, you're not out there saying, oh, look at us, how great we're doing, but instead, here's what we did to help.
Correct.
This is a case study on this. This is how the type of messaging and how we moved quickly, but still had a quality message and that resonated. Those are the things that I think you need to show that. But to your point, obviously there's a right way to do it. But I think those are invaluable stories to share.
I think
Maybe
that could
not
be a
right this
really,
second, but
yeah, I think that's something that you get ready for the future is even, you don't have to mention the agency's names, but if you collected some tips on here's what we found some agencies have done in the last few weeks that have worked for them. They might work for you. Then
Yeah.
somebody can go, okay, there is a bit of light there, you know. What's your comeback plan? Are you going back into the office? What's the story? Is this your office?
Yeah. I'm in my basement, but at home. But so yeah, I mean, it's odd. Ohio is a little bit ahead of some other states in the sense. I do think our governor's done a nice job. So I didn't mean ahead in the sense of, but literally ahead in the sense of this coming Monday, offices are allowed to open back up. Now there's restrictions, and we talked a little bit about it front, of only like half the office can be there at a given time. And so we're not telling anyone they have to go back, certainly. And for us, it's making up a guide that says, here's how we're going to be, doing social distancing. Here's the equipment we have in the office. Everyone's working remotely now. So the ones that want to keep doing that, and especially the ones with younger kids, I'm lucky my kids are a little bit older, a sophomore in high school and a sixth grader. She would get mad at me if I forgot what grade she was in. But
six, Daddy.
They are great kids, but they've been good through all this. But having the younger kids now, I can only imagine. And
I know, right?
So that's we're giving as much leeway as we can across the board, and our team has done a great job, of being able to get through all this and do it. So yeah, the plan is to gradually over the course of this month kind of see where we are, put a plan in place where no more than half, and then the folks who still want to work from home absolutely do it.
Yeah, you could do a roster. You can do a shared desk scenario where you buddy people up and say, right, you two figure it out yourselves. Who's coming in when? You split the team down, buddy people up and go share a desk, as in pretend you own one desk, and then come in and share that. And then that way you can space it out. I think that's a great tip. God, I feel for the parents who are at home with the kids. I don't know if you know Marcus Murphy from The Digital Marketer. He's Marcus. I don't know if you saw what he posted recently.
Not personally, but I know who he is.
Yeah, he put of all the stories, and we've seen the BBC News guy. We saw him years ago. We thought, ha, he is now like a legend, where the kid comes flying and then the nanny comes in and all that. He is like, people were like, ha, that's happened on a daily basis. I was on a podcast just before this, and somebody's cat went just absolutely berserk. I was going,
oh, totally.
Don't worry about it, we're leaving this in. But Marcus just put a post out a few weeks ago where he was like, so I was trying to find my AirPods to just be told by my daughter, who's, I don't know, 3, 4 or something, that I threw them out the window, Daddy, on the motorway.
Yikes.
And then went off, like, and poor Marcus, you can just imagine, it's like, you can't react to that.
Right.
There's nothing you can do or say. And she was that's old news. Like, that happened on the motorway.
Oh my God.
And then it was like this, he just goes, how's your lockdown going? You could tell.
Check that out. I haven't seen that.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was just like, so the parents, kudos to you. I absolutely can feel, but yeah, a plan like that. Okay, the office is going to open up, but it's not going to open up for everyone. So halfway down, that's a really good tip for people to figure that bit out. And yeah, some people need to stay at home, and just take your time. There's no big rush with it at all. What are you sort of thinking about differently now, apart from the office? What sort of new advice are you giving people that you haven't given them before, that you kind of, that I'd love to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think for it's interesting. I mean, for us, as I mentioned earlier, and we've been talking about, I mean, our main focus is the driving new business, getting clients closer to close. So, but it's been interesting lately. So while a lot of it is based on that, some of it has been interesting. We're in talking about some of these plans like we just discussed, and to tell agency owners especially, and I think most of them already are, right, because they're business owners, they have to be aware of these things, but there are legal considerations to think about in terms of literally providing a guide, providing masks and things like that. It's certainly through the next 4 weeks, if not longer. because literally, like, I was just reading yesterday, and I have to look this up specifically to make sure I'm getting it correct. But, right now you have to legally, if someone wants to work from home, and I think it falls under OSHA, but I may be wrong about that. Or maybe other guidelines too, where, so there's been some of that just with agency owners thinking about some of those legal ramifications. Not that we do a ton of that, but sometimes that'll fall into play just when I'm talking to them. But I think then mostly, on that new business side, one of the things that folks have been talking about with me and with us, and whether they're thinking about coming on board or we're just having a conversation, what tools are we using moving forward that we weren't using or we're using differently 2 months ago? So for us, we've always found success in and whether folks are working with us or not, if they're doing it themselves or have a person on the team doing it. We always want to make sure we're using every channel in concert with each other. So what that traditionally has meant is phone, email, social, where it makes sense. We still actually use direct mail. We still have a mailing piece. And it's funny how some agencies, especially like younger digital agencies, will be like, why would a digital agency do that? That's only one tool in the toolbox, but it's so uncluttered today that has done well for us as a tool. Fast forward to now, as you might imagine, there's not a lot of mail with people. We don't have a lot of home addresses, nor we want to impose that on folks.
Of course. Yeah, I didn't.
A lot of it's thinking about the tools now.
To the office.
Yeah, and so the phone has become more important than ever. We're getting a lot of meetings via phone, and trying to be respectful. Part of besides using all those channels together, one thing that thankfully has held us in good stead through all this has always been, and Mark started it, our president, from day one, was we're not used car salesmen. When we're going in, we have to show value. We have to show these folks, and they're busy, so you have to do it quickly and concisely. There's a reason you should talk to us. Because when we reach out on behalf of our clients, RSW is never mentioned. We become the client. So we reach out as the agency, right, to make it seamless. And because of that, especially, but just the way we've always operated is not to try to, some of the things in the video series that we do and some of the content we create, I keep every email I get from salespeople, and some of them are actually quite good, but a lot of them are quite bad, and still doing these tricky subject lines like meeting follow-up, which happened to me last week. And I'm like, are you really doing this now? There was no meeting. I didn't know who this person was. And that's fine. I mean, I didn't get upset about it or anything, but I'm like, I know that's so tone deaf. And the LinkedIn selling, and I've talked about this before, has gotten much worse. All the bots and the immediate cold selling that just is not going to get you anywhere. I don't know how they think that'll ever work. So I think thinking about those tools, and also the fact that now we're doing, with Zoom, which has actually been great. I've had more face-to-face than I ever have in terms of prospecting with agency owners. But for our salespeople and just for agencies reaching out, trying to do new business themselves, one of the things I always pointed out here recently is give prospects the option, though, because some people are sick of doing Zoom, and they would just like to have a phone call. Like, I don't want to be seen right now. Yeah. I want to sit in my robe or whatever. I can have a great call.
I want to lie down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but
on the couch.
For sure. And I think though, I've seen too many salespeople recently. All right, let's do a Zoom. And it's like, hold on, it seems simple and maybe obvious to say, but I think that's something else that we're going to be thinking about. And then the last thing is just the messaging, and to know that you really do need to reconsider it every week right now, as far as new business, and make sure that you're not. Yeah. And because it really is changing every week. And what you said 3 weeks ago is now either, again, everyone's saying it, or it's time for us to stop using those words. Yeah. But I think it's just thinking about where these businesses are and always keeping that. And because you pointed out earlier, keep being mindful of the fact that you have to show them how you can help, and not in a kumbaya kind of way, but legitimately saying, look, we're experts in this. We truly can help you. We're doing it for our clients right now. So. Right.
Yeah. And just checking your workflows and your sequences and your automatic emails and everything that could possibly go out of your business, to check the messaging on it.
That's a great point. The automatic stuff is that you forget. Exactly. That's a really good point.
Like, go and look at every single workflow and just check it. Or has something been on a timer because you paused it for a while?
Right.
I think that's a huge one. I posted an article, this psychologist, Gabriel, that I just kind of came through can't remember how, but I think I followed him on Twitter, and he's in Boston and he runs a business school as well. And he just talks about the impact of our communication. But it's a really good article that I reshared at the weekend about how we're feeling zoomed out. And
Really? Okay.
he gives the analogy of when we meet with our friends, when we meet with our family, when we meet with our business clients, when we meet with our work colleagues, they're all in different locations.
Yeah.
We might meet our friends for coffee. We drive, meet them for coffee, drive, come home. We might go to our families' homes. We drive, we meet them at their homes. So we get time to process and travel and meet at a new location. When everyone is all in one location, in a Zoom, it's like being in a pub and having everyone come in to your at the same time or back to back. And you can't physically cope with that as a person. You're not used to everyone coming into your home. It's like if you open the door and everyone started coming in, you wouldn't be able for that. So being mindful of your Zoom and are looking forward to meetings. We just talked about this earlier on with Jodie. I think you know her as well. The Suitor Company. Yeah, she's on. Yeah. We talked about that, about if you're not really looking forward to a Zoom call in the evening with family and friends or something, cancel it, because there's a very high most people are not spending a massive amount. If they're not in the tech industry, they're not on Zoom all day. Teachers, that kind of thing. They might have one call every few days. We're on like 7 calls, maybe more, because we can, so it is different. It's about managing your energy. Yeah, I posted on LinkedIn, it's really, really good one. Kind of interested in what's going on. I feel like I'm a bit of an experiment. Do you?
Yeah, no, and I want to I'll go to your profile and check that out, because it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I think the mental piece of all this, beyond obviously the COVID itself, I think mentally it's been weird. I mean, I it sounds like as much as you're doing. I mean, I think the agencies we talk to, I know myself. I mean, and this is not a complaint. Feel very lucky to be working.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's actually working more and longer, because I know myself. I mean, there's no one walking in. I mean, other than like family if they're popping in or something. But otherwise, there's no interruptions other than set meetings and maybe emails. But you look down at the clock and it's, oh my God, it's 6 p.m.
Yeah.
I took like one break for 10 minutes. And again, it's not to come off as, oh, poor me at all. But I just think mentally folks are, and they don't realize it. And I think there's that mental component, because it sounds like from that article you posted, comes from that too. And people have to be careful. Yeah, I think.
Because we're going to need, like, as tough as this last few weeks been, I do deep down feel that this has been the easy part. We've just been told to stay at home. We now have to integrate, and we have the next probably year and a half before we get out of this properly, if at all, because we don't know what the world is going to look like.
Yeah.
And we need our energy. I don't think anyone wants to look back at these times that we were forced to stay indoors and think, do you know what, I should have rested up a bit more. I should have taken my evenings off. So it's a bit of a balance of trying to find a way at 4, 5, 6 o'clock of setting some alarm to say, do you know what, now I need to stop this and shut it down, because I do need to disconnect. I think we're all trying to figure that out, Lee. There's probably a little bit of guilt again, because some people have lost their jobs and we still have, ways of earning money, and we feel a little bit like, oh, I better hustle a bit more. So yeah, we're just learning that, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, and there is that too, where you kind of feel like I can't stop, because who knows what's going to happen. But I think mentally, I like that notion of kind of setting, maybe even literally setting an alarm,
or even seeing as you have an adult in the house who tells you to stop watching the news.
Yeah, right.
Get her to come in at 6 o'clock and go, laptop down, get up and have dinner.
And she works too, so it's interesting.
Oh, cool. But maybe somebody needs to set an alarm.
Right.
Figure it out.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. What are some of so we don't always talk about that kind of the things, the sort of like at what everything goes well. What are some of the typical mistakes that you see agencies make? And maybe someone's listening to this now and going, oh my God, that's me. What are the typical things that people are doing that end up coming to you where you can help them? Because I'm sure someone's listening to this going, do I need some help? I'd love to hear that sort of the before you call. What is an agency typically going through?
Yeah, I think, excuse me. it's interesting. So you had kind of different, I won't say personas. That's not really the right word to use, but
Personalities.
yeah, I mean, so you have agencies that do tend to fall in certain buckets in terms of like, and it's not always that they've done something wrong, although sometimes it is. But I think it's a lot of agencies just relying too much on a network or referrals, which anytime we get a new client or I'm talking to an agency, I'm like, working with someone like us does not mean that you shouldn't still pursue referrals. I mean, they're amazing. And I think, and we do these reports, 4 of them a year, typically on different aspects of new business. One of the things that typically comes up, what's the main source of new business for agencies right now? And almost always number one is referrals. But, they're not consistent. It's not that you should ever stop pursuing them or have a plan in place as part of a new business process for that. But where, if you want to say, where they've gone wrong is completely relying on that. And it's not only not consistent, but could dry up at any moment. So I think that's the first thing, agencies relying too heavily on those. I think also when it comes to a new business director, if they want to hire someone internally, almost always, and I get it, again, we get it, because a lot of times what happens is they've waited too long. They should have been doing something all along. And now we're in a position where, oh my God, we have to do something quick. And if you want to, hire a new business director, you're a good one. It's not going to be cheap. And you get what you pay for, like anything in life. And I think too often a mistake is we're going to hire a young gun or what. And again, that's not to say that someone younger couldn't be amazing, but typically what happens with them is maybe they are amazing, but agencies, they don't give them the training they need a lot of times because they just don't know how, to be fair.
No onboarding. Yeah.
There's little to no onboarding, and everyone gets frustrated, and that individual they've hired either ends up leaving or getting fired. And then agencies are even more frustrated.
And then they go, oh, that doesn't work.
Exactly. And they're like, well, we tried it, it doesn't work. And it's like, well, what did you do? I think also if agencies are trying to do something internally, what happens a lot is, and we talk about this with firms, if they're not going to work with us, cool. I mean, there's tons of people who still don't even know who we are, which is always interesting and not necessarily a bad thing, as we try to push out and get ourselves known with our content. But I think what agencies tend to do is, okay, we're going to do new business internally. Here we go. Here's our plan. They bite off way more than they can chew, spend money where maybe they don't even need to spend yet, and start to get frustrated because even literally just 4 weeks in, when they don't see results, that also when they say, well, this isn't working. And it's like, well, wait, you haven't even started yet. We sent out this email blast. We thought it was really good. We spent all this time writing it. And, the phone's not ringing or what have you. And it's like, well, what did you do for follow-up after the one email you sent out? Most of the time it's, well, we started to, and then nothing. So I think that's where and the last thing is where agencies get stuck. And this is really tough, right? Where they have the giant client, the dinosaur, the whale, whatever you want to call it, where, well, that's 70% of our business. And that is a great problem to have, right? Yeah. But that's where, the smart agencies are like, we've got to diversify. New business has got to be part of that. So I think those are typically the areas where we see agencies. And again, all of it is understandable, but I think it's first point is, recognizing the problem, right? And I think, and then lastly, it's tough when you have multiple owners, multiple partners. The too many cooks in the kitchen thing applies almost every time, where, again, probably all well-intended, and it is well-intended, things just get stuck, slowed down, never move forward with whatever type of decision. And that gets tough too. I think you've got to delineate, this one person needs to be in charge. Now we're going to be there for that person, and we're going to be sounding boards. But at the end of the day, we have to have one point of contact. And that's how it is with us too, as an agency. We have plenty, or as with our agency clients, wherever we can, we want to try to have that one point of contact. It doesn't mean other people aren't taking the meetings or aren't involved, but when they get 6 or 7 people, involved, it can be tough.
They all have different opinions on how things work. Yeah. And a salesperson is only as good as working for a company who's got clear personas, has a list of people to call to, qualified people to call, a sales process, marketing collateral, sales collateral, a target, a structure, everything.
Yes.
If you expect them to come in and don't give them one of those things, they have to go off and build that. And that can take anything from a week to a month to build a good deck to present. And if you're sitting
Sure.
looking at them going, you've been in the office all week, they're like, I have nobody to, I cannot go out yet. I have seen that happen so many times
Yeah.
that you're like, what do you want me to go out and talk about? Magic. I have no deck. I have no follow-up. You have not got. So if you are bringing anyone in from a junior to a senior to a big hot gun with their Rolodex, as we would call it, we're both showing
Yeah,
our
right.
age. But, whoever they are, if you don't give them stuff, they have to come in and build all of that. So don't be giving out to them if it takes them a week, a month, 6 months. It could take them a long time to build the material for them to be the gun again. So huge thing to remember. I think you would have seen that over and over again. It's like, but they can just go and sell. No, they need stuff to sell.
No, it's such a great point. And you're right. I mean, that is the way so many of them think, that just go and sell. And I mean, that's why for us, and I will be self-serving for 2 seconds. I mean, everything you just mentioned that you have to have, which was a perfect list, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That's literally all the things that we do for our clients, because we do it for you.
Yep.
But there's plenty of folks who aren't, what they want to do internally. God bless them and go for it. But that list should be like front and center to say you really do have to do these things. And the other thing is, agency new business needs to be an agency-wide endeavor. Correct. Where creative has to take a little bit of time to help create some of that collateral. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we're here recently, there was an agency owner in DC a couple of weeks ago. She was very kind enough she's trading emails with me about, hey, have you thought about doing some of this for your content for this video series you all do? And one of the things that they've been doing is getting some of the younger staff involved who maybe aren't doing things that are billable right now, and getting them involved in new business and literally putting, okay, social media, we need your help here. We need your help, with blog posts or what have you. And I love that. And not that it's not rocket science per se, but that's a great way to get everyone involved, because truly, you have folks who, yes, they're not touching new business every day, literally, but they really are. In whatever they're doing, it's helping your agency build up its book of business. And so I think that's important too now, especially going through all this, although it's true always, is trying to get the team, literally the entire team involved to some extent, I think really goes a long way.
Yeah, so even an exercise right now, I did a piece ages ago, which was about the ways to navigate through challenging times. And at the beginning, it was adjusting. So there's all the things that you've got to do to adjust, like ring the bank, get that loan, speak to your landlord, work remote. So that was adjusting. And now we're in a stage of pivoting. You're looking at new products, and then there was a stage of there's a waiting for clients to come back. So sitting down as an agency and getting everyone, somebody who's junior, someone who's senior, to relook at your personas. Are they right? Are they there? Then maybe that person who hasn't been exposed to the persona before go, oh, that sounds like my dad's best friend, Jack. Maybe I should. Now they can actually start to make some introductions for you, because now they know, oh, yeah, we talk to them all the time. Oh, that's my best friend. He works for that company. Right.
That's huge. Yeah.
Start to think laterally, get everyone involved, revise all your marketing activity, your personas as a team, pretend you're a client and go, right, let's put our best packages on ourselves and see if they work. There's so much things that you can do in this little gap before things are going to start working differently again. Just as agencies are trying to figure out, what will I do? Because great news if you've got staff that you're paying, but what are they doing if there is no client work at the moment? Yes, they can sit at home and look at Netflix, but if you get them working on your business, doing some training, you're doing them a favor. They'll still have time for their Netflix, but why don't you do some work? We all find time for Netflix. It's a miracle.
Yes.
You've obviously had all these conversations, Lee. You do look like a man who's come out the other side. What's your sort of personal tip for how you've been managing yourself? And then what tip would you have for an agency as they come back into this new world?
Yeah. Gosh, I think for me, it has been, I think, excuse me. And we are lucky in that and I'm not, Mark, I'm not trying to blow smoke if you're listening, but we are lucky to have a leader who has been on top of it. Yes, he owns a business, as he should be on top of it, but it is a good leader. And we have a leadership team that, we have kept people informed. We've kept optimistic but realistic through all of this. And yeah, we've had to make some changes. Thankfully, have not had to lay anyone off, knock on wood, because I'm a salesperson.
Right. Yeah.
That's been huge. And so I think for just being able to have that as a cushion, maybe for lack of a better word, knowing that I'm not going to say we're all going through this together, because then I would ask you to reach to the screen and slap me. But
there are so many phrases we never want to hear again.
No, you're correct. You're correct. And I think for me, it was just organizing the time during the day. I personally like going into the office. I don't work from home that often.
You're
normally.
A sales guy. You like your human interactions.
I do, although a lot of what we do is over the phone, quite frankly. Now we're traveling when clients are kicking off, so it's a good amount of travel, but a lot of it is phone and now Zoom, and that's great. But I think for me, it's just been setting and organizing a schedule, and it's only been in the last couple of weeks, making sure that you are taking some breaks and trying to interact with family and which predominantly, right? So I think, yeah, I think for me, that's what it's been. And just making sure I'm lucky to have several hobbies, and playing music is one of them, and taking 5 minutes and just picking up the guitar or something like that, or whatever it is, reading a book. But then I think so you asked what tip for agencies. I mean, really, this is going to sound maybe trite, but I really think, now is the time to think about your new business plan. I mean, it more than ever, which again, shouldn't put it that way, because that's what everyone's saying as well. But I really think now, and the tip is baby steps. I mean,
yes.
You don't have to go and buy HubSpot or Salesforce. And I'm not trying to knock them. They're both great platforms, but we always knock the fact that most agencies, their CRM is an Excel spreadsheet for new business, right? So, but you know what? Fine. Start out that way. You know what? And a lot of that stuff today, whether it's during this or not, is free. And just start with those personas that you mentioned, for example. Are they defined? In terms of list building, start off, and that list building is one of the toughest things, right? Because it's just tough. It can be drudgery, right? And it can be hard. We're lucky that we have a team of, I guess it's 9 people now. That's all they do. And they're kind of the unsung heroes, truly. We have our salespeople who are amazing, but without a really sound list, just start with, okay, your top 20, 30, 40 companies. And it may seem like not very many, and it's not, but take those baby steps to say, here's what I'm going to do today. I'm not worried about tomorrow and getting that done in terms of new business, but just taking some of those baby steps and just day by day, even making a calendar of, and seeing what you can realistically do. That would be my tip, is just to start somewhere, which seems so obvious, but it's not to a lot of these. And it's very hard now, because you're keeping your business together, your employees. And if it's not the owner, if it's not you, then just like we talked about earlier, delineate someone. Okay, it's going to be this person. And it is hard to do no matter what kind of times we're in. New business is tough.
Absolutely. But do something and get started.
Yep.
Great advice. And Lee, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I wish you all the best as you get out of this lockdown here in Ireland. I'm just waiting to hear that we're going to be in it for another 3 weeks, because the way our things are going here. So I wish you well as you reemerge in the world. I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I know that this advice is going to be really invaluable to agencies out there.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, really, to be on. And I hope everything goes well on your end. And I hope to talk to you again sometime soon.
Absolutely. And goodbye, everyone. We'll see you very, very soon.